Nightmare is a horror film series that dates back to 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street. For the two Wes Craven Nightmare movies and the reboot, see Part 1 of the retrospective. 5 sequels appeared from 1985 to 1991, a separate version in 1994, a crossover with Friday the 13th in 2003, and a remake, reboot, whatever in 2010. And in 1988, a horribly bad TV series. In Tobe Hooper's pilot No More Mr. Nice Guy, also the tagline of Craven's shocker flick A Year Later, Freddy is given an altered backstory in which he is tried at the beginning but gets off on a technicality whereupon angry parents and a cop burn him in his powerhouse fortress. He comes back in their dreams, however, and takes revenge. Except for one more, the 44 45-minute episodes each contain 2 stories, 8 of which are specifically about Freddy Krueger. In the rest, he only appears briefly at the beginning and end, making short, biting comments, similar to Crypt Keeper in Tales from the Crypt. The cheaply shut out, unwatchable crap got quite rightly devastating reviews and was cancelled for lack of viewers after 2 seasons, with me already after 2 episodes. "1985, Freddy's Revenge" continues the story with a completely new cast, kind of. 5 years after the events in 1428 Elm Street, 17-year-old Jesse is plagued by nightmares. He learns with his girlfriend Lisa from the script of Nightmare 1, which was still lying around, of course, from a diary, something about the previous inhabitants and Freddy, who takes more and more possession of him and kills, among others, his best friend. In the end, Lisa is able to free him from Krueger by expressing her love. Wes Craven had at that time no interest in a sequel, and already felt the end forced by the producer with the reappearance of Freddy as an imposition, since the original Nightmare was intended as a self-contained story. Replacement Jack Shoulders, see also The Hidden, completely out-of-line Nightmare with unmistakably homoerotic subtext, was able to make alone in the US its $3 million budget 10 times back, but neither went well with audiences nor critics. It breaks with much of what was established in the predecessor, since here, for example, already at the beginning a bird attacks without reason, explodes spontaneously, and Freddy kills not in dreams but by Jesse in the real world. He even shows up in person at a pool party for everyone to see. Some of it seems a bit hastily coupled together. In the shower scene you can still see the Freddy replacement before they're finally brought back Robert Englund, and the romance stuff at the end is pretty lame.
This is where you belong. Don't make me wait too long. All night long.
It's still absolutely worth a look due to the relatively serious tone, a fast-paced, very good soundtrack, and the creativity in the ingenious practical effects, like crazy bizarre details, the fantastic introductory scene, for me one of the best ever, or Freddy's coming out of Jesse sequence. 1987 Nightmare 3 Dream Warriors ignores its unloved predecessor and this time has another story by Wes Craven, who co-wrote the screenplay. Nancy Thompson returns 6 years after the events of Part 1 to work in an institution for suicidal teenagers who are terrorized in their dreams by Krüger. She tries to induce collective dreams with group hypnosis, using Kirsten's psychic ability to bring other people into her dreams. The teens can now work together to fight Freddy. Chuck Russell's extremely successful directorial debut made alone in the US its $4.5 million budget 10 times back. Freddy also gets his infamous dark humor for the first time here, and it is kind of the real start of the series. Compared to Part 1, the tone changed as drastically as it did with Star Trek II or Aliens back then, which went from the rather slow, atmospheric basic concept of the predecessor in favor of serious mass suitability and faster, more action-orientated paced, with extremely interesting, sympathetic characters with whom the audience is able to connect. In addition, Freddy's puns add a light touch of humor to the murders. However, it manages the balance and still remains constantly dark and serious, with a real horror atmosphere until the end. It's my personal favorite of all the Nightmare movies, the only one besides the original that doesn't feature Freddy in some cameo without his mask, and also the last really good one of the series. Just exactly the opposite of A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. In the following year by Rennie Harlin, see also Die Hard 2. The surviving Dream Warrior, Kristen and her two friends Kincaid and Joey, meanwhile released from the asylum and ordinary teenagers, suddenly have to deal with Freddy again, who, despite the definite final from the last part, comes back from the dead because a dog pees on his bones or whatever, and now to find new teens since he's running out of Elm Street kids, uses Kristen's ability, which already dies in the first half, to get her friend Alice in place for the next part, who in the end, meanwhile, also turning into Karate Kid, of course, Dream Master, for whatever reason, absorbs the powers of her dead friends. Nightmare 4, the cashing in master, made on a $6.5 million budget just in the US, almost $50 million back, and was the most financially successful until Freddy vs. Jason. It was similarly hastily, like Nightmare 2 at the time, shed on the market in 1988. Even if it is generally rated rather positively and some simple-minded even praise it as the best thing ever, for me it marks the death of this franchise. I hate this god-awful piece of shit. From the first minute it seems like a downgrade or direct-to-video production. And this impression is also reinforced by the fact that Patricia Arquette as Kristen was not available, in which at first all likable and known characters from the predecessor are quickly and unworthily killed off, to leave the viewer in an uninteresting story with moderately talented actors whom he neither knows or cares about, which by a fooling around Freddy, now apparently rock star, partially in broad daylight or even on a sunny beach, get to a horrible soundtrack completely help and chanceless slaughtered in overly complicated ways. Because a bit more serious and darker and therefore a bit more bearable, but still the opposite of good, so instead of plague only cancer, is A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 The Dream Child by Stephen Hopkins. See also Predator 2, which continues Part 4. It begins with Freddy's procreation legend, in which nun Amanda Kruger is accidentally locked up with a horde of mental patients, as mentioned in Nightmare 3. Alice is now married and living a normal life again. This changes when she becomes pregnant, as Freddy now wants to return through the dreams of her unborn child. In her dreams, Alice also meets her unborn son Jacob. Freddy tries to manipulate the child to win him over, which of course doesn't work, and Jacob ends up helping his mother to kill him and disappears years, much like this franchise. Nightmare 5, The Trauma, no joke, it's seriously called that in Germany, like its predecessor, was also hastily rushed to market a year after the last one. This time, however, the math didn't really add up, and it couldn't even triple the $8 million budget worldwide back. So it still made some profit, but is only later undercut by Wes Craven's new Nightmare. Even if it's from my point of view not quite as bad as Nightmare 4, the franchise killer, which movie is, was Freddy, thanks to that, still degenerated to an embarrassing joke figure, with which of course nobody can be lured to the cinema. The visually somewhat more respectable fifth part uses surrealistic images and at least tries, though admittedly unsuccessfully with a far too complicated story and the usual uninteresting characters, to become more serious again and create an eerie atmosphere. This of course didn't go well with the MTV Freddy fans of the last music video, while those of serious horror didn't even show up in the cinema, and like me only saw it later on video, if at all. Years after the last fiasco, it was decided to officially bury the Dead franchise with Rachel Taylor Lee's Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, to make at least a quick buck with the funeral, while the franchise corpse is still warm. Except for Freddy, it has completely new characters with a new plot and 3D final, sort of. And makes Freddy a clown again, next to which even Bugs Bunny looks downright serious. Since nothing mattered now anyway, this one takes place 10 years in the future. So 2001, where Freddy has murdered almost all the children of Springwood. The last survivor loses his memory while fleeing the city and ends up in an institution for street kids. Searching for memories, he returns to town with Maggie, an educator who later turns out to be Freddy's daughter. Sure, why not? And 3 other teenagers, where Krüger starts again his killings and finds a way to break out of Springwood. In between, we see his child-killing past as a pretend family man in flashbacks, and the execution in his house and not as before in the boiler room or factory by the angry parents. The final battle takes place in the street children home, in which the dream demons, what kind of children's book page have they stuck now into the script, which had helped Freddy to immortality, are cast out. If you replace Dream Demon with Audience, that's even true. The completely crazy, silly, ultra-cheap looking, muddled together crap made its $9 million budget worldwide almost 4 times back and is so bad that it's already somewhat entertaining. Not that I would watch voluntarily one of those under any circumstances ever again. That's not the case with Freddy vs. Jason in 2003 by Ronnie Yu. See also Bride of Chucky. In the crossover of Nightmare and Friday the 13th, Freddy, since forgotten, literally burns in hell. So he influences fellow killer Jason Voorhees to go to Elm Street. Quickly, Krüger is suspected for the new murders, who that way returns to the dreams of the kids. But he can't murder anyone yet, because the children don't know him anymore and therefore don't fear him. While Jason unchecked thins out their ranks before Freddy gets his kill. So he tries to get somehow rid of him and uses his fear of drowning. Meanwhile, the last survivors of whatever are trying to get the two to Crystal Lake to increase Jason's chances. Since he is the lesser of the two evils, who cares? Nightmare 8, Freddy Takes on Jason, made its $30 million budget almost 4 times back and divided fans and critics, in which the reactions are very far apart, since he ended both at the time by their last entries almost destroyed to the point of irrelevance, fading away franchises on a high note. However, as a standalone it does not work, since only hardcore fans of both series are able to tell what the hell is going on. Besides, it pulls a lot out of its ass. Out of Freddy's head, of course. Like, people have to remember Freddy so he can kill? Since when? Or that Jason can't withstand drugs and is afraid of water? Sure, rather of soap and towel, I would say. Nevertheless, I liked the movie back then and thought it's very entertaining for what it is, since for both franchises unusually elaborately produced, even if the CGI causes more eye cancer with every watch, and very entertainingly staged, if you don't take it quite so serious. It pretty much sticks to the current slasher formula: teens, monster, gore. Wait a minute. Something indispensable for understanding the extremely complex plot is missing here. There they are. But I am also not a super duper Friday the 13th fan, because then I would be really pissed at how poorly they treated Jason. This is clearly just another nightmare, and I don't mean the first 3 good ones. So much for Friday the 13th. How a real Jason vs something else supernatural would look like we already had in 1988 with Friday the 13th Part 7. That's why I can understand the disappointment that they didn't even try to incorporate in any form the eeriness of the old nightmares or the sheer horror of the first Friday the 13th. As usual, they limited themselves just to Easter eggs and references. Each party has some plan or intention that it also articulates, and therefore pushes the voiceless Jason like a chess piece with limited abilities without own goals through the plot chessboard. But that's also the problem with childish crossovers in general, and for simple fan fiction this movie is much better than it has any right to be. The idea of Freddy vs Jason was put in place back in 1993 in the 9th and supposedly last Friday the 13th, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, by a short, cheap final gag scene that came off more desperate than a real teaser. And circulated for years similarly, thanks to the final scene in 1990's Predator 2, which became Alien vs Predator in 2004, as a myth that hardly anyone actually took seriously, especially considering how bad and unpopular Freddy's final was. And even that was still Citizen Kane and high art compared to Jason and the franchise Goes to Hell, which not even the very hardest Friday the 13th cult followers defend with a serious face. Even Jason Voorhees was so embarrassed that he distanced himself from it to such an extent with new identity as Jason X not only left his city or the country, but directly with the first available flight, the entire planet. More about Jays of Space soon also in this galaxy.